Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, Cardiol Therapeutics is currently conducting a phase 2-3 trial on a CBD-based therapeutic for heart inflammation, specifically targeting patients with or that have had COVID-19. David Elsley is president and CEO of Cardiol Therapeutics. A pleasure to speak to you today, David, and thanks for doing this, jumping on with us to talk about this, because it's an important topic and an interesting one. Let's discuss the trial first. Tell us where we are as far as progress goes and really where this got started.
Sure, Brendan. First of all, thank you for having us on. It's a pleasure to be here and tell you about the great work we're doing at Cardiol. So this study is basically looking to confer protection to the most vulnerable patient population to the COVID virus. I think we all know the Delta variant is now making its rounds in this very powerful fourth wave, which is outpacing hospitalizations and mortality rates of previous waves in certain regions of the world today. And we have designed this study basically to protect the most vulnerable patient population, which are those with a prior history of heart disease or cardiovascular risk factors. They are at a markedly elevated risk of death and suffering major complications because of the immune response to the COVID virus, which can cause a massive inflammatory response and organ failure and ultimately death in thousands of patients.
Now, the term myocarditis has become more popular, I guess, over this period that we've been dealing with and talking about the COVID virus and some of the side effects. Talk us through exactly why this does occur, or where the initial response comes from, as you mentioned, and how you feel and how the company feels CBD specifically can not only be a therapeutic, but what are we specifically targeting here?
Essentially, we're targeting the ability of the CBD molecule to reduce inflammation and fibrosis, which is fibrosis is the process by which the heart dies or major organ systems die. CBD has been shown to be profoundly beneficial in reducing inflammatory processes and fibrotic processes without the toxicology that typically accompanies other inflammatory strategies such as steroids. With respect to myocarditis, myocarditis is a devastating form of heart inflammation. It remains the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in children and young, healthy adults. And now we see myocarditis, it's primarily caused by a viral infection. So historically, you could think of the influenza virus. Now we have myocarditis-like phenomena secondary to COVID infection. A rare complication of mRNA vaccines is myocarditis, predominantly in young males. And certain of the cancer therapies, such as the checkpoint inhibitors, are causing a deadly form of acute myocarditis. So myocarditis prevalence is rising. It's tragic when it strikes. And at Cardiol Therapeutics, our second program is focused on addressing this deadly form of heart inflammation, for which there's no current standard of care available today. There is no recognized treatment for this condition.
Now, Cardiol recently completed its uplisting to the NASDAQ, trades under ticker symbol CRDL. Congratulations, first off, on the uplisting to the bigger exchange. Talk us through what that means for the company, getting that exposure on a major exchange like the NASDAQ, and what we could possibly see next for Cardiol.
The NASDAQ is the premier global exchange for life sciences and biotechnology and innovation companies, technology companies in general. The United States is the largest healthcare market in the world, has the largest heart failure population, largest cardiac population, where heart failure remains the leading cause of death and disability. And it's the number one reason people are hospitalized, driving about $30 billion in healthcare expenditures. So with the NASDAQ listing, we now have a platform to communicate far more effectively to the life sciences community, build the brand of Cardiol Therapeutics on the largest healthcare market in the world, and ultimately revalue the company, which we certainly believe has a long way to go. If we look at other proxies for what we're developing here, GW Pharma was the great trailblazer in this sector. They were acquired recently for $7 billion. Myocardia was acquired for $13 billion late last year, which had a new treatment for rare forms of heart disease. And that's the path we see this organization on. We're doing great work targeting inflammation. It's the number one culprit driving increasing mortality and morbidity in the heart failure population. and we're here to address those issues.
And it's a very important issue, as we said, specifically surrounding the COVID pandemic that unfortunately is lingering to this date. Let's discuss a little bit going forward here, David, as we continue to monitor the progress in this trial. A successful outcome. Do we see more trials going forward on other areas as far as heart disease is concerned? What is the end goal and then the next step for Cardiol?
So the major objectives of this organization on a near-term basis is to complete the landmark Lancer study, where we're studying the cardioprotective properties or the ability of this molecule to reduce risk of death and major cardiovascular complications in this population. And I think we're all learning in the wake of the Delta variant that we're probably closer to the beginning of the pandemic than the end, unfortunately. We have a program that we're now initiating in acute myocarditis imminently, which is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in children and young healthy adults. And then we have an entirely new innovation, a new formulation of the cannabidiol molecule to more specifically target drug concentration at cardiac tissue. And we plan to address that to the mass market of heart failure, which remains perhaps the second largest medical market in the world, leading cause of death and disability. Second probably only to diabetes in terms of its size and scope and impact on human health.
David Elsley, President and CEO of Cardiol Therapeutics, joining us today. We wish you the best of luck and look forward to an update on this trial and hopefully many more in the future. David, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be here today.
CRDL, guys, the ticker on the NASDAQ now, as we said, a recent uplisting.